Okay, so now I want to finish this thing up now with the discussing modern day slavery. Now, of course, I addressed this with the prison systems of how that's modern day slavery. But um, next point I want us to address is that which the issue at hand is another one of the okey dokes they try to do, the sleight of hands, is that slavery is not a race issue. It was not about blacks and whites. And that's the picture they want to paint, because as long as they have us black people thinking our enemy is white people, when the reality is the solution is white people. All throughout time, whether it was the equal rights movement, whether it was the rights to vote, all of these things, we didn't even have a right to vote, but yet we were voted to have a right to vote. And those are things that we miss, that we don't understand, that it's not a race issue. That's what the media, that's what the people who want to keep us separated, they want to sell us that, because as long as we think it's a race issue, we are willing to go to bats against the people who we need in order to unify and make and invoke the change. There's been enough change that's happened throughout history that happened as a cause of enough white people getting the heart and realize that this is wrong. We need to be treated fairly. So the white people with bad intentions, I don't even want to say white people with bad intentions. It is okay, like I said, it's not a race issue. What it is, it's a power issue. Um, Now, it's not a race issue, it's a power issue. It's people who are in control who want to keep a certain system in place. Okay, now, um, slavery, we think it's a race issue. Yet, when you look at slavery, when you look at slaves, what do we what? Let's look at break it down. Majority of the times, it was several slaves to a plantation, several slaves to a slave owner. It wasn't like it was one slave to one white person. It wasn't like that, because it took the ability, the skills, the manpower to break the slave. So it was the wealthy who had slaves. It wasn't the typical white person, the regular white person that had slaves. Now, there were some regular white people that were mind played into superiority complexes over slaves, but slavery was not a race thing, it was a power thing. Every white person did not have slaves, because you had to buy a slave first of all, and every white person wasn't rich in that time. Everybody didn't have the money. It was a growing economy, so it was people who had businesses that needed to be worked, and they had the means to control them, and they had the guns and the ammunition and the manpower. Those are the ones who had the slaves, because slave was a business. It wasn't a free thing. It wasn't something. It wasn't a movement to just enslave our black people. It was a business move. So you had to have money and power in order to have slaves effectively back in that day. So it wasn't a race issue. It was a power issue. And so I say that because today we we recognize that slaves were set free. Well, we're no longer enslaved. And so we equate that with freedom. They want to sell us that we have freedom. But I say we don't have freedom. Because once again, I already explained what freedom was. When freedom is the ability, the power to our power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. So we don't have freedom. And so today, why don't we have freedom? Or what is the evidence that we don't have freedom? We still have a social injustice. Social injustice is just the term that we have to replace slavery, because we feel that we can't say slavery because they set us free, but all they did was halfway set us free. And so this, the halfway that they did, we equate to slavery. The other half we label as social injustice. So instead of recognizing that the slavery that they enacted on us is still in place, we don't feel comfortable saying that. So we call it social injustice. Now, who benefits from social injustice? The same people that benefited from slavery. The people who have the power, the money, the wealth. Wealthy people benefit from having a sect of people that cannot work, that is dependent on the system. Dependence on the system means you control how much money they get. They work the minimum wage jobs, because the minimum wage jobs create business. It creates jobs, which in order to create money for them to spend, they spend that money. And what they do when they spend that money, they make the money. They make the money. They get paid. They go out and they pay these bills and they pay these expenses, which in essence filters right back to the top, the people who have wealth and who have all the money and everything. And so they give us jobs. We work, We make money, we spend money, and the wealthy people have been the ones who benefit from it. That's it's the same things in the slave days. The only difference is back then they didn't pay us. They gave us a home and they gave us a place to live and they gave us a scraps of food. It's pretty much the same thing. And once again, I'm speaking to the sect. For those of you who want to get outraged and say this is BS, there's a lovely lady out there who has this video where she speaks to a room full of white people and says, if you feel like the way black people are treated is fair, then how many of you would trade places or would graciously accept to be treated the way that black people are treated? And not one of them raised their hand. And she said, you misunderstood me. My question is, how many of you would trade places with the way black people are treated? And no one will raise their hand. So that in itself is evidence that you see something wrong with the way that we are treated. Yet when we call something on it, y'all want to say it's BS. Y'all want to say we're angry. Y'all want to say we're all of these things instead of realizing the truth of what it is. So the reality is, yes, we call it social injustice. We call it if a black man gets out of line or he doesn't respond to the police a certain way, he can be killed and not be found guilty. We have since 2013, what 15, 16 cases where black people were killed by police and it's not a crime. There is nothing that is black and white anymore. Are you kidding me? A life is not so not even not even manslaughter. Nothing like they're set free because a person was not complying with what you said, yet the power to write, the power right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint is what freedom is. So we're free, we operate as free, and a cop kills us, and it's not murder, or it's not manslaughter, or it's nothing. It is him acting in his duty. But yet we're free. So once again, slavery, it's a sensitive subject. I hope I've shed some light on it for you. The reality is what Kanye was trying to get us to see is we have to make better choices. We do, because back then their choice was slavery or death. Nowadays, we because of the sacrifice they made, and that's really the point. Like I had a Facebook post, and I was saying the fact is, slavery, they made a choice, and we benefited from that choice. They made the choice to accept crap so much so that we shouldn't have to nowadays. We are in a day and age where we should feel comfortable speaking up, doing work. We have the ability to be educated. We have the ability to make. We have talents. We have gifts. We have all these powers that we have. And in fact, please watch one of my future videos. It's very empowering. It's gonna speak to this exact thing, how they misdefine us and suppress us, but we are capable of so much more. So the whole point Kanye was trying to get to is we have to make better decisions, okay? So don't be so outraged on it. Let's literally start making decisions and recognize that we are not free based on the definition of freedom that they give us. If we cannot act as a white person acts and not get the same treatment as them, we don't have the same freedoms. And freedom should be universal. Freedom is non-colored, is non-discriminatory. Freedom is what it is. It's free. So we're not behaving in freedom. We're not treated in freedom. Let's not sit here and accept this notion that we are free. Okay. So once again, hopefully this is helpful to you. Like the video, share the video if it helped you, and watch the others. I got some more coming out as well.